Well, Steve, how can I serve? I'm 100,000 in debt. It's not a scoreboard.
And it's not linear.
No.
I think that's the other thing that messes people up. They're like, okay, so I'm going to start giving referrals. I give you referral, you should give me one. It's not linear. It's a big bucket. It's a big old bucket. You put into the bucket gives back to you. It's not a linear process.
And one way to serve, and we talked about earlier before the show, there's no competition, there's collaboration. You're both coaches. You may work with high-end companies. This works with entrepreneurs. Let's work together. Let's do a workshop together and bring both our networks together.
Hi, I'm Erin Marcus, former corporate executive turned entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business. Welcome to the Ready Yet podcast. We're excited to bring you more than 100 episodes of interviews and insights designed to help entrepreneurs get the financial and emotional freedom they need in order to build a business and a life they're proud of. All right. Hello, and welcome to what's going to be a casual but cool episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I'm excited for today's guest, Steve Ramona. I say casual but cool because this is just how we are with each other, right? It's all about conversation. It's all about how can I help you? It's all about who do you know and who do you need to know? It's all about creating success through serving. And the other thing is like just having fun. Just having a good time doing it, right? Because why work this hard to be miserable? But before we get into all that, why don't you give everyone a little official, introduction to who you are and what you do?
Well, this is a pleasure being on your show, and I'm excited, as a lot of people say, but I truly am because I've learned a lot from you. I think you've learned from me. And I'm Steve Ramona. I'm a podcast host. I'm a coach. I help people launch their podcast. 3 things they worry about is time, money, and how to do it. And I show them how to save on all 3 of those, plus the right way of doing it with partnerships and serving, bringing value to your guests, value to the people you meet. Once you do that and it comes back as a boomerang, make sure you receive it.
Oh, I love that. Make sure you receive it. But also, one of the things we talk about is too many people get stuck thinking that serving and growing your business, or just let's call it making money, are mutually opposed things, right? Like those 2 things are mutually exclusive. You can't do them together. Talk a little bit about why is that so the opposite of the truth, and how have you maneuvered into turning it around?
Customer services, you business owners out there, you managers, what is that all about? You're serving your customer, fixing the problem they have, enhancing what they have through your product and service. But taking it to the level, how do you feel when you serve somebody? Death and taxes are guaranteed. I almost say when you serve somebody, it's almost 100% guaranteed. They're going to smile for 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, because you've brought value. This world this day, I know we hear this all the time, but value's missing. We're sometimes fearful and afraid. But when I meet somebody, and it happened with us, I'm always thinking, how can I bring value? Right? It can be multiple things.
Well, and it's so funny you said that, because it's so second nature for some people. It's so second nature for some people. And you can apply this to the way you think in general. When it's obvious to you, that doesn't make it obvious to other people because they think differently. I had a conversation today, a great conversation with someone who's going to be on my show, and I'm going to be on his show. And it must have been 3 times in the 20 minutes I talked to him, he mentioned, oh my gosh, like, I met 1 or 2 other people like you who have this giving mentality. And I just thought to myself, wow, you have several hundred episodes of your podcast out, and you've only met a couple people with a giving mentality. Let's get you some different people.
Yep. And it's interesting perspective I see too. Now in my circle, inner circle, whatever you want to call it, community, is all about people like you that are serving. It's an outlier when I hear somebody in a networking group or out wide that's a taker. Here, right. It starts pitching.
Right.
But you're right. Serving is not a common thing with business because there's desperation and fear.
I was going to, right? And it's exactly. And here's the thing. I say that I'm surprised he hasn't met more people, but I say with all the empathy in the world, because I know the reason that people are hesitating to think about others is because the weight on their shoulders is just too big.
It is. And it's a mindset. Here's something that's really unique that I'm learning. It's a skill set. It's a skill. It's a skill set, mindset. People go, how do you do it? Well, every person I meet, I met 3 people this morning, whether I've met them before or not. I'm thinking, okay, as they're talking, listening is the key to be a server, because you don't hear what they're saying. You can't figure out how you can bring them value. The law of increase from Think and Grow Rich. But if you learn to do that, and here's what I put out to your audience, I put in my audience, start Monday. And for Monday through Friday, every person virtually or in person you meet, bring value.
Yeah.
Write it down. Think about it on Friday afternoon when you're done. Write down some of the stories. Write down what happened. Write down how you feel. Write down how they feel. And then write down how you feel that minute. And I guarantee you're going to feel better. 1%, 5%, 100%, I don't know. But we know when we give as humans, we all have it in us. Murderers in prison, to a pastor at church, to whoever it may be. It's in us. But this round thing in our head stops people. Because, well, Steve, how can I serve? I'm 100,000 in debt. It's not a scoreboard.
And it's not linear.
No.
I think that's the other thing that messes people up. They're like, okay, so I'm going to start giving referrals. I give you referral. You should give me one. It's not linear. It's a big bucket. It's a big old bucket. You put into the bucket gives back to you. It's not a linear process.
And one way to serve, and we talked about earlier before the show, there's no competition. There's collaboration. You're both coaches. You may work with the high-end companies. This works with entrepreneurs. Let's work together. Let's do a workshop together and bring both our networks together.
Right. And I love working with coaches who work with people. And the way that I describe it is, okay, so if they're successful with me, they'll be perfect for you. After they're successful with me, you're the one to take them the next step. It doesn't mean that I'm not good at what I do if I am not the person to create $100 million company, but I'm fantastic at creating $5 million companies. Great. Now I got a bunch of partners who are great at creating $25 million companies that I can help this person. Hey, I'm done with them. They're done with me. Everybody keep moving forward.
That's serving. You know your expertise, like I know my expertise, and it only goes so far. But then you give them to somebody. It's like, we have a car, our engine breaks. I can't fix it. I'm not sure if you can. I probably not. We go to a mechanic.
If it's an old car, I can. If it's a new electric-based car, I can't. If it's an old car. Right. If it's like a 70s, probably could figure that out.
You're good.
New one, new.
I love it. But we're going to find a referral from a mechanic.
Yeah.
Tony's going to tell us, Steve and Erin, go see Joe the mechanic. He's great. What did Tony do? He just served us. He's not making any money. He's not getting any income, but his universe, currency in the universe changes.
Currency in the universe. And I did my whole live show this morning on not networking as a marketing strategy, but building your network. And those things to me are very different. Building your network is a different activity than check the box. I went to the networking mixer at the chamber.
Very
and
true.
The way that I describe it is this: who responds to your DMs? It used to be who will answer the phone. I don't answer. Unless you're my mother at this point, I'm not answering the phone. I'm old, but I'm not that old, right? It's text. Why aren't you texting me, right? But who will actually answer your DM? That's building your network.
Yep. Your network is your net worth. I have one person in my network. How much am I going to grow? How much money am I going to make? I got 1,000 people in my network. I've got many more than that. I'm growing. My income's growing. But the abundance of having a bigger network, guess what? I can serve more people.
I think that's the other piece. Like, there's the balance. I think this is what messes people up. I'm going to call it out. I'm going to say it messes up more women than men. the balance between serving and building relationships, and yet not losing sight that there's a business aspect to what we're doing. Like those things can go together. Just because we're all building a business. And here's the thing, the truth of it is, we might be in industries where those referrals really only go one way, but I can find another way to help you. So I'm not taking from you because you're in a business where you're going to refer me business, just whatever. There's examples of this all over the place, but it'd be less likely for me to be able to refer you a client. But I can do all sorts of, I can get you on a podcast. I can get you on a stage.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Those are resources. Those are tips. Those are referrals. Those are loaning money. I mean, there's so many ways you can serve. Just be creative about it. It's the new way of networking. Podcast is the new way of networking.
Well, first of all, I'm not gaining as much weight. So COVID helped me a little bit because here's the thing. I live outside of Chicago. So we're good Midwesterners, but things are expensive. So we would go to Starbucks. We would go to Panera. I would feel guilty. I'm not going to take their table and not buy something. And who are we kidding? I'm not buying a salad. So I'm paying for parking. It's taking a ton of time and I'm eating more pastries than I have any business eating, right? So COVID helped, rein that in a little bit because now I don't have to leave my house. But podcasting has become my absolute favorite way of networking. And here's why. Other podcast hosts get it. Like they understand relationship building, number one. And number two, I also feel that if you can get a growing podcast out into the universe on a regular basis and grow your business, you kind of got your act together. Right? You probably got your act together a little bit.
Yeah. And that's what people are looking for.
Right.
And building relationships, I think happen, I'm 62. So in the 50s, 60s, my dad was a contractor. Well, he had to drive around. There were no cell phones or anything. So he had to build relationships with all his different companies. And there wasn't as many, but still, that's where I got all this from. Part of it was watching my dad just, hey, let me help you. Okay, we need to do this. And maybe bring a bottle of wine, take them out golfing, serving them, thanking them, rewarding them, whatever word you want to use.
And I do think it's a value system. It's absolutely underlying all of this behavior. You have to have a general respect for other humans. You have to actually like other humans, or this doesn't really work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why we have 8 to 5 jobs and a desk. It's admin. Nothing wrong with it. I know me and you've talked about it. That's your play. But being able to find your place, whether it's an entrepreneur or an 8 to 5er, that's so powerful. It's freeing. Maybe you're not making enough money, but nowadays there's so many side gigs you can do, and we won't get into that. But knowing your place that works for you, I always tell people all the time, you're not walking in people's shoes. Just learn. And I always say this too, it's about a marriage. The first date you go on, you're not getting married the next day unless you're 90-day fiance, whatever that show is.
Whatever that weird show is, yes.
Yeah, and of course that's half of it's fake anyways. Right. So you've got to cultivate and build, because you may meet somebody and try to build a relationship and it just doesn't fit. There may be a taker, there may be too busy, and that's okay too. You're going to love them from afar. And I did use the love word because it is part of business. I love working with you. I'm excited to be here. We have fun every time we connect.
Well, and that's the other piece of it. This can be hard. There's enough about entrepreneurship, the economy, marketing, business, like there's enough pieces of this puzzle that are inherently challenging. Why would we do it alone? Why would we, right? Why make it harder? I said I didn't quit 6 figures in an expense account to be miserable, right? Like, that's the support system. I've long said, when people ask me what was the biggest positive surprise about becoming an entrepreneur, and they think I'm going to talk about the flexibility and the money, and okay, fine. No, the bonus I never saw coming was collaborative networking. I never a corporation is inherently competitive because there's only so much room as you go higher and higher and higher. It's not a bad thing. It just is. It's inherently competitive. And so this giving world in the entrepreneurial space of how can I help you? Who do you need to meet was the most amazing surprise bonus I never saw coming.
I love hearing that because people need to hear it in the audience, and it needs to be shouted from the rooftops because it really does work. We're both growing, we're both successful, and we serve like hell, like crazy. I mean, I think I've done 1,800 referrals this year.
Nice.
Probably more than that. But
nice.
I have a large network. People go, I don't have that large network.
You don't start there.
Yeah, you start there with 4 or 5. I'm not saying if you have one that you stay at one.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Ready Yet podcast brought to you by Conquer Your Business. With decades of experience, Conquer Your Business creates business and branding strategies that build multiple 6- and 7-figure businesses. And we don't just show you what to do. We have an entire team of people available to help you do it, strategy and implementation. You can learn more and reach out to us by visiting conqueryourbusiness.com.
And I'll tell you a quick story. When I work with a company called Infone, we have this digital business card. And so when I became a global sales director, I jumped and did 50 meetings a week because my ultimate goal was building my network. They get to know me, they learn about my product, they get to know me, learn about my product. And audience, listen to this. 500 people I met within 6 weeks that were meeting with me one-on-one, which led to 3,000, which led to a lot of people and a lot of sales. Because I'm able to build relationships with these people.
Well, and I think that's the key is it's not just a numbers game. People will hear that and think very transactional, and that's not how this works, right? You absolutely can reach high numbers of people. And I will tell you, I absolutely agree with you. High numbers of people are absolutely necessary to really grow and scale, but it also has to be the relationships within those numbers. I did the same thing when I had my last business. I said I got that business to over 6 figures in the first 12 months of the business. I was in the top 10 out of 200 offices nationwide within 18 months. And I started out by going to 10 networking events per month and reaching out to at least 3 people per event for a follow-up conversation.
There you go. That's the blueprint. Meet people.
It's right there.
Connection. Yeah. Let's book a time.
You book a time, but you also have to have a methodology to keeping track of people. I don't remember it. I mean, we were joking before we hit record. I can't remember anybody's name. The biggest shock to me is like, somebody's like, oh, so-and-so saw the missing poster, the missing child poster and said, oh my God, that's that kid. I'm like, my brother could be on that poster and I wouldn't recognize him. So I'm so bad that way. It's brutal. So I have a system where I keep notes and I check on what's going on. And I know when I reach out to people, you just need a teeny little reminder and the memories come back. But there is a systematic approach to it. And that doesn't mean, I think what happens to people is they think every time you systematize something or monetize something, you take away from the relationship organic aspect of it. And that's just not the case.
No, and I learned something about money 5-6 weeks ago from a guest on my show. And they talked about it being energy. Mm-hmm. So you pay me to do whatever I do, say it's $500, but the energy goes back out too.
Right.
It's we think of money as debt, paying bills, negative energy. It's energy. It's how we give energy.
Right.
I give you a referral, you send me a referral commission, whatever that is. Who wins? Everybody. Steve wins because he got a commission. You got a new client without any marketing. And 3, your client's going to be super excited because they're going to grow with you.
Exactly.
As the mafia says, an offer I can't refuse. That's kind of the mafia godfather. But
right.
I'm Italian, that goes that way. But
I'm from Chicago, so it's fine as well.
Oh, so you understand. But if we think in these terms of win-win, that's value. Right. We don't know what that is or what it could be. I serve at my church. People go, why do you do that? Because it's value. And guess what? I meet people and I get somebody on my show.
Right.
Or somebody needs help with their podcast, which I help them with. So
let's switch gears a little bit on that, because I want to talk about podcasting for a minute, because I'm torn on this and I feel a little bit of a hypocrite when I say it, because I have a podcast. I love my podcast. I'll be on probably 75 shows this year. As a guest, we are dropping 3 episodes a week, a solo episode and 2 interviews. So obviously I'm very committed to this platform. Talk to me about, like, if somebody's considering having a podcast, because the other thing I tell people, you have to be at the right stage of your business. A podcast is not a short ROI situation.
it's not. It is. It's like bringing value and building relationships with a platform. When I started in October and started working with the group Pantheon and learn about this, because I've always wanted to do it, but I didn't know why. Because people ask me why. I don't know. I kind of liked it, but it's evolved. Yeah, it's just built this network. But as I told you before, the 3 things that people worry about with their podcast: time, money, and how to do it.
Right.
How to do it properly. And that's what I coach and teach people. But what I found is I'm building this inner circle of incredible people who've done incredible things that now introduce me to their network.
Mm-hmm.
A billionaire called me last week, as I told you, wants to work with me, heard one of my podcasts. I've only talked to 2 billionaires in my life, and it's been the last 6 months.
Right.
But I brought value, and it's our business card. We're out and about and we're meeting. If I ran into The Rock, per se, I would say, hey, The Rock, would you like to be on my podcast? There's more of a chance in being on my podcast than him buying a product.
Exactly. I do it all the time. I go to events and I network, and that's great. And then I just did it. I met a really cool guy who's going to be on the show, who probably in the 80s, in the decade of greed, got himself wrapped up in a situation where the company kind of used him as a fall guy, federal offenses, and lost everything at what you and I now would say was a kid. He's like 25 years old. And then he goes to be an entrepreneur, and the day before his big business launch, he gets called by the FBI. Right? Like, now he's got a felon. Like, and so I met this gentleman, and here he is several years, several decades later. He's sold a business for 8 figures. He's sold a business for 9 figures. He's this cool guy just from Wisconsin, on stage in his jeans and flannel shirt. He's got an amazing story, an amazing book. And so I just went up to him and say, hey, I would love to share your story. And he's going to be on the show. And it's a way to serve and meet people, and truly from a little bit of a selfish place, people who otherwise wouldn't talk to me. Now we have a platform to make it more of a mutually beneficial relationship.
Yes. You're promoting them. You're giving them the platform. You offer it. Yeah, it's a powerful way, because podcasts have changed a lot. 5 years ago, it's, you Joe Rogan, and, if you didn't have these big sponsors, let's get a ton of sponsors. Right. In 8 months, I've had 1 sponsor, and that was nice. But are you going for more? So yeah, if somebody wants to sponsor my show, great. But what I love is helping people. Like I told you, one of my guests last week, a Super Bowl champion, he's got a headset that deaf people can hear. And I'm helping them. And he's asked me to come and work with them. Financially, it could be big, but you know what? It's that serving at. We'll go right back to serving. He's like, Steve, I love how you're serving. He's going to be on my show. Again, would he have worked with me before? Maybe, but what could I offer him? Now I can offer him the podcast, but I can offer him my high level network, which I have 2 or 3 big people, other football players he doesn't know, I've connected him with. Well, his name's Tim. He's going to go, I know he's thinking, Steve, you're unbelievable. Served him. Now I'm in his.
As I literally just write a note for someone I need to introduce you to for him. I'm like,
see, and that's value. We're always
I know
value.
who needs to meet him. So as a beginner, one of the things I tell people as they get their ball rolling is you've got to be a guest as much as you're a host. If for me, for the platform to truly work, because my podcast is an audience nurturing tool. Me being on other podcasts is an audience growth tool.
Yep.
Because if all you do is produce your own podcast, yeah, you're going to meet the guests, but you're not going to get the reach that doing both of those activities together.
And having a podcast, other podcasters want to have you on.
Right.
So you've opened those doors too.
Absolutely.
The other thing I'm going to give beginners, what I learned from Josh, my mentor and partner now, is my first meeting with him. I asked, I'm excited. What do I do? Record, record, record. Don't care what it looks like. The final approach. They're all on my YouTube channel. If you want to check it out, my very first one, it was started recording. I went 1, 2, 3, and the recording had started already.
Well, and I say, who kept listening to these podcasts? When I go back and I look at old episodes, why did they keep listening to me? I don't understand. But they grow with you. They grow with you. And I've had so many people who come up to me and say, I remember 4 years ago when you'd have 20 people at your event, and now you're getting, you know what I mean? Like, they're so happy for you.
Yep. And here's the evergreen part for beginners, is I just had a person I met that went through my shows, listened to a show back in October. And he's going to work with the guy. They're going to do a partnership together. Nice. My guest is going to make some money from it's October. It's going to be 10 months.
Yep.
So when you're starting to put these on YouTube and your podcast platform, remember, they sit there forever until the internet shuts down. Because if the podcast company goes away, you just move to another podcast.
Right.
YouTube goes away, you just find another Vimeo, which is never going away. But that's powerful. And keep in mind, I'm not saying for me, it's powerful for my guests.
Right.
Because they can sell and promote themselves for years without paying a cent.
Exactly. And everyone's worried about, what do I say? What do I say? What do I say? This is how you do this. This is why I started out with an interview format to begin with. Because it takes away some of those nerves.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep. Yeah, if you're not good in front of the camera, that goes probably not a fit. Like we were saying, 8 to 5 is good for you. Entrepreneur is good for yeah. Don't push a podcast if you're not comfortable. That's okay. You don't need a podcast. It's just for us and for people that want to do it. It's valuable.
Absolutely. So if people want to continue this conversation with you, become part of your network, learn about how you can help them, learn all the things. And here's the thing, guys, I highly, highly recommend reaching out. What is the best way for them to find you?
You can find my podcast, Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. It's all on the platform, YouTube channel, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn, Steve.Ramona, Ramona. I'm on LinkedIn all the time. We can connect there and set up a one-on-one and build our relationship together, like me and you, Erin, have done over these last weeks. Can't believe it's weeks. It feels like years.
And then I kept meeting all these people who know you, and it was all very exciting. It was a bit of a whirlwind romance we had here. Absolutely. Sure. Well, thank you so much for your time, your energy, your insight, your effort, your servant heart. I absolutely love it. And I can't wait to see what's next for you, for me, for all of it.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. This is great.
Awesome. Thanks.